Hi, guys. Welcome back to the Po2 podcast. I'm Jay.
And I'm Amber. Today we've got some big news. Yesterday, technically, we got some big news. Charmed has been cancelled.
Honestly, I'm very sad and disappointed, but I'm not that surprised.
The show's been cancelled after just 4 seasons yesterday by the CW and during their big, what's been called or dubbed by some people as the network bloodbath. The CW didn't just axe Charmed, it axed 7 of its scripted shows, which was a massive move for the network.
Yeah, because normally the CW, and I'm partially shocked because the CW has been so notorious at renewing all their shows. Like they rarely cancel shows. But what's different now is I think a couple months ago it was revealed that the CW is up for sale and they're changing management. I know that currently it's owned by CBS and Warner Brothers. I don't know the details. Maybe Amber's read the news that's come out, but because of all that's happening behind the scenes on top, um, they decided to clean house and get rid of all the borderline or underperforming shows. And unfortunately, Charmed is one of them. The ratings have always been abysmal, even though critically it's a lot better in its newest season, but it just wasn't enough to justify its renewal.
So Deadline reported the CW downsizes as it faces transitional year amid ownership change and business strategy shift. They are cutting ties with all of their programming that isn't bringing in significant numbers. So the shows that were on the air and may have had fan bases but aren't generating enough money for them, they've cut ties with, including shows that they didn't necessarily want to cut ties with, but the studios that were producing them wanted to cut ties with to make basically to help them with money. And it makes more sense for them to start a new show than it does to keep a fledgling show on the air.
Right.
And Charmed was averaging about under 500,000 live viewers every week live, and then obviously with streaming it was doing a lot better. But there's obviously, we now know that the show, they've decided to cut ties with it.
Yep. I mean, we always knew that it was not the best in its ratings. Like it always underperformed, but we always felt that streaming um, is where it had its viewership potential. I think it was doing really well on Netflix and yeah, on Netflix. So unfortunately, it just isn't enough. Like right now, they're cleaning house, they're making room for other things. And the thing is that it's not so much Charm's fault. A lot of shows were canceled. Like there were 7 other shows: Batwoman, Legacies, Legends of Tomorrow, The 4400, Roswell. I mean, a lot of big name shows got cut.
The good news and the silver lining to all of this is that the writers knew that this was a potential to happen. The writers knew that they may get cancelled because the network kind of let them know.
Right. So that means that they wrote the finale with a conclusion in mind, but still left it kind of open enough for a future season. I feel better about that, but at the same time, I hear that a lot from a lot of showrunners. And typically when a show has like an ending that's open-ended, it still hurts when you know it's not going to continue. There's plenty of shows that have like an open-ended type ending, even if it wraps up a lot of things. It's still not like, I feel like it's not gonna make everyone happy. My gut's telling me that it's not gonna be like the big finale we're hoping it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be a little bit cliffhangery.
Well, I'm just grateful that they're going to wrap it up. Now, showrunner Joey Falco has promised that they're going to end it in a way that is uh, that will feel fulfilling. And Tommy Cook, who is one of the writers on the show, says that the ending of the show it ends in a bonkers kind of way. He said that he honestly couldn't think of a more surprising yet somehow inevitable way for the show to end. And it seems as though the storyline is going to be something cataclysmic is going to happen that affects the universe in a big way and changes reality. So, and the charmed ones are going to have to put their lives on the line to rectify and fix things. And they're going to have to put their lives at risk.
And there's going to be some sort of crossover with the original Charm show. I don't know. I don't believe it's going to have like any appearances from any of the original actors, but I think they're going to heavily imply or reference things from the original.
Maybe the charmed ones, the Halliwell sisters will get referenced. Maybe they'll bring up Melinda Warren. I know that the writers were talking about bringing her up, and they also were hoping to do more with her next season, but unfortunately that's not going to happen now. So all we can do is hope for the best and hope that they deliver us a good season.
But I don't think all hope should be lost. I mean, realistically, I don't see the show being saved, but crazy things have happened. Um, I would say Charm fans in general are very, very outspoken and, loud in a good way. Um, I won't be surprised if the show ends on such a high note that maybe the fans will react enough to have someone notice. I mean, the viewership, like I said, the viewership was not the best, but in streaming, there's potential there. Um, I don't think Netflix would do it because they're not in the business of saving shows anymore. But CBS, who produces the Charmed reboot, they have their own streaming service. It's called Paramount Plus. So it's very possible that maybe Paramount Plus can pick it up. It's, very unlikely, but why not? I think that it's the kind of show that if done right, they could do another soft reboot and, bring in a new audience if they really wanted to put the effort. But I would really hope that they keep as many of the same actors and writers because I want the season 5 that we would have gotten on the CW because Joey, Nikki, and Jeffrey, they were doing such a phenomenal job this season.
Okay.
No, you
I
don't
I
agree?
I I think that I'm not going to get my hopes up for a renewal. I've been in this position before when shows that I've really, really loved got cancelled, like Witches of East End. Um, and
Oh,
we rallied and we petitioned, we did all that stuff, and it just didn't work. We
but
had like
Witches of East End ended after 2 seasons, and it wasn't. It didn't have a legacy. It didn't have like a long lasting brand that Charm does. Like I know that the Charmed reboot always had flack for its quality and writing, but it does have its branding from the original. It does have that legacy that someone might be interested in picking it up just to have like a concluding story or to offer that on their service for years to come because that is like a moneymaker. Having something in their library like that, it would make a lot of money.
mm, but you have to remember that Charmed isn't a cheap show to produce. It's got a lot of effects and things, even though they film it in Vancouver and it obviously has a lower budget than the original series did. don't know if that, I mean, it would be nice, but we'll see. I'm not holding out hope. Um,
True.
I just
But
think
surely, but I don't know. I just feel like um if it's a budget issue, I mean, I've seen shows that get slashed budgets, like they get slashed to hell, but they somehow make it work. There's always a way to get around a low budget.
I like how what's the word?
Optimistic.
I like how optimistic you're being. It's nice.
Well, it's just because we never know. We don't know what's going to happen. I know that right now, out of all the canceled shows, Legacies is the one that is trending the most and likely to be saved. Legacies is most likely to get saved because it's from the Vampire Diaries. The Vampire Diaries lasted 8 seasons, then it had the originals for 5 seasons, and to end it, like to cancel it now without a proper conclusion is just very disrespectful to the fans. Like it's a huge IP. So I do think that Legacies might get saved. Um, but I'm hoping that Charmed could too. Out of all the shows, I mean, I did really enjoy Batwoman, but I'm not that upset about its cancellation because I just feel like it had no stories to tell anymore. Season three, like, was not the best and it ended on a weird cliffhanger, but overall it was written like a finale. Like I can tell that they were like they had this big hug scene at the end and it just felt like a finale. And I just feel like Charmed has so much more stories to tell, especially with these new showrunners. Because really they've only had one season to do anything with it. There is talk of fan campaigns to try to save the show. I was talking to a guy on Twitter who was following other TV shows that got canceled and saved. And what some fans did for Manifest, when Manifest was canceled, fans, I think they mailed paper airplanes to the studio and they made like a huge online campaign for Netflix to pick it up. And even when Netflix originally passed on it, they reversed their decision because so many people were tweeting and asking them to save it. And I think that was like the last recent show that they saved. So like they're not in the business of doing it anymore, but it still happens occasionally because they saved Lucifer, they saved Manifest. I think it just depends on how vocal the fans are. So I was telling him maybe we should collectively start a campaign. Maybe like I had this idea that maybe the fans can um, send the studio, like send the CW and CBS and Paramount, like maybe we should all write a letter on why it should be saved, but have the page look like something out of the Book of Shadows. And then like not only mail it in, but also take photos with like all the proper hashtags and then just try to get it trending. And then also watch Charmed on Netflix. Just like have the viewership come up as much as possible.
Okay.
You don't agree?
Okay. Okay. No, I mean, I do think that, it's the reboot sort of had its day. I would love it to continue, but I'm just not gonna hold out hope that there's some campaigns gonna save it because a lot of these shows they get cancelled. And let's be honest, the viewership, the audience for reboots, not been that good. So
Yeah. Well, there's always
if it was a big show, if it was a big show and we were talking about something like I'm trying to think of something that's on the air that's sort of relevant because I don't watch a lot of TV, especially American TV. Um, if we were talking about, I was going to say legacies, but that's already been cancelled. Um,
well, I mean, Legacies is a good example. It's probably that show is probably gonna get saved.
yeah, if it was something like that, then I think that maybe we'd have a chance. But Charmed, with everything that they've done, and they haven't really tied into the original, they haven't really brought in the original fan base. There's nothing really like apart from the reboots fan base and some of us OGs that still watch it, it just doesn't have that cultural impact that the original show had. And I think Legacies probably has more of a cultural impact because it is still continuing on the Vampire Diaries kind of storyline, their universe. It's still
Yeah.
following on with all that. So it's got that solid fan base behind it. Whereas Charmed doesn't really have that much of a fan base. It has an okay fan base, but it's not. And even though, and we're very, very, the fan base is very dedicated, but I think that it just doesn't have the oomph that something like Legacies has.
No,
It's my
I
opinion.
get
I could
it.
be wrong.
No, I get it. But I do know that a lot of the fans are not in the US. Like I do see that the majority of people on Twitter, they're like in Brazil or Europe or the UK,
Or
you know,
Greece.
Greece. Like there's so many fans all over the world, and it's just a shame that their ratings, like their viewership doesn't really count.
Mhm.
Because
Nope,
like
it doesn't.
as far as I know, the reboot doesn't even air overseas anymore. Like I think it stopped after season two.
So what I will say, well, it does actually. The reboot does air in certain countries, specifically, not on live TV, but I think a lot on streaming. So I know that HBO Max, España, they originally got one of the episodes in season two or season three earlier. So they published it earlier than it actually aired on live American TV. And somebody involved in the network tweeted this about a week ago, saying that they were informed that their network, European networks, have been informed that Charm was going to get cancelled. So, and I thought, oh, is that a rumor? Is that, and obviously that's turned out to be true. So they do have some leeway and some sway over the production. They know. Um they knew about it before we did, if that person's true, which I think he is, because it's come out that it's been cancelled. So
Well, there's always there's always fan fiction. A lot of people on Twitter have been saying, oh, well, they'll just write their own season five,
yeah,
which
I'm
could be
gonna
fun.
I'm gonna write a Harry. I'm gonna write a Harry and Jordan erotic fiction.
Oh God.
No, I'm joking. So yeah, anything else you want to say, or
I'm just disappointed. I think season two, the direction season two went and just killed the show and it never recovered. Even though season four has just been so good. I think that if I do think that if the people behind season four took over back in season two, this might be a different story. I mean, who knows? It probably would have been canceled anyway. But I do think that we would have had better television than what we got. I feel
it?
like I think season one was like acceptable, semi decent. Season two and three were like horrible. And then season four is probably the best it's been.
Mm. Well, I think for me, season one was my favorite, and I just couldn't stand season two for the most part, and season three just didn't resonate with me. But season four has been, it's been a lot of fun to watch. A lot better in terms of quality, and I do tend to agree with you. I think that a lot of people, they kind of just dropped out, during season two, because it wasn't about that sisterhood anymore. It wasn't about, the girls anymore. It became about, well, how can we destroy the sisterhood? How can we take their power away? How can we rebuild?
It didn't even feel like Charmed anymore. I'm not saying that what they did was it's not like it was bad. Like the plots were like it just wasn't Charmed. It was not at all what people wanted Charmed to be. It was like this weird sci-fi show that had, supernatural elements to it, but it just didn't feel at all like season one. And yeah, I don't know. It just sucks that 2 seasons of it were wasted.
And it had a very, like you said, it had a very sci-fi vibe, but even the magic on the show felt like science.
Yeah.
And it became very much like that. But there is one thing that I do want to mention though before we wrap up. Joey Falco made a big speech on Twitter and he thanked the writers and he thanked several of the actors, but he made no mention of Madeline Mantock and or Lucy Barrett. But I looked back at that and I was shocked that he didn't mention Madeline. I thought that was out of order. Um,
Because, well, in my opinion, I don't know why he would leave out Lucy Barrett, but I can see why he left out Madeline because she essentially, jumped ship. And he also wasn't in charge when she was on the show. So maybe he,
no, but he was a writer when she was on the show. He was
Mhm.
involved in the production of the show.
I don't know. I just feel like there is bad blood between Madeline and a lot of the cast and crew. I mean,
Well,
it's mhm.
Madeline, if you're listening to this, we appreciate you. I appreciated you. I think really you were my favorite part of the show. And I even though I don't like what they did to Macy, I appreciated you and I enjoyed you on the show. And I think that you deserved to have been in that speech. That's just my opinion now.
She's probably at home sipping tea on
Mm,
Twitter, reading all the tweets.
yeah, probably.
Oh my gosh. No, it's just,
She's gonna do an exposed YouTube video.
yeah, that's one thing we can look forward to at the very least. Now that it's over, Joey said that he's told me on one occasion, and he's told other fans that after the last episode airs, he'd be willing to spill some tea and answer questions. I think there's one person holding a Q&A that they're probably going to set up. So I'm definitely going to follow that, and I'm going to see if he can answer some behind the scenes stuff because there's stuff I want to know, and he explicitly said he can't talk about it while the show's airing.
Okie dokie. So I think that's it, unless you want to say anything else.
No, that's it. To anyone listening, if you like, once the show's over, what would you like us to do? Would you like us to review older episodes, go on to a different show altogether? I mean, where do we go from here, Amber?
I don't know. I don't know. Um, I did bring up the idea that we could like talk about maybe the comics, but I know you weren't particularly interested in that.
No.
Maybe we could talk about like the OG show, although it's been done to death. I don't know. It's been done to death, hasn't it? There's so many child podcasts. We'll figure something out. Even if it's like we don't post every week, we'll do something with the channel. We won't like let it die or whatever. We'll keep it going in some way.
Well, as always, you can follow us on PO2 underscore podcast on Twitter or at Charmed News on Facebook.
And we will be back with our regular reviews very, very soon.
Yep.
Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.